Good morning and welcome to the 3rd of July 2020 meeting of the Joint Waste and Recycling Committee. My name is Malcolm Johnston, Secretary of the Joint Waste and Recycling Committee. This meeting is being held remotely and is being live streamed via YouTube, and the recording of it will be available afterwards on the website. Councillors and officers are reminded to put their mobile phone on silent if they have one near them, leave their cameras on for committee members only, and mute their microphones when not speaking, as this will reduce feedback and background noise and save bandwidth to prevent loss of connection. I will first do a roll call to check all the members who are expected to attend are present. As I say your name, please turn on your microphone and confirm you are connected. Councillor Paul Barnett.
Present.
Councillor Claire Dowling.
Present.
Councillor Catherine Field.
Present.
Councillor Kim Forward.
Present.
Councillor Roy Galley.
Present.
Councillor Sue Projek.
Present.
Councillor Bob Standley.
Present.
Other members joining us today are Councillor Roy Cade from Wealdon District Council. Councillor Cade, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Paul Cortell from Rother District Council.
Present.
Thank you. Officers joining us today are Carl Taylor from East Sussex County Council.
Yeah, good morning.
Carl Valentine.
No, Carl Valentine sends his apologies.
And Justin Foster.
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Thank you very much. And from Hastings, we have Mike Hepworth.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. From Rother, we have Dr. Tony Leonard.
Yes, I'm here in the capacity of Lead Director.
Robin Venard.
Present.
Joe Powell.
Good morning.
And Lisa Cooper.
Morning.
And from Wealdon District Council, we have Avril Price.
Yes, good morning.
And David Plank.
Yes, present.
Then joining us from the Joint Waste Partnership is Madeline Gorman.
Present.
And then from BIFA, we have Roger Edwards.
Yep, good morning all.
Simon Badley.
Good morning, present.
Simon Crook.
Good morning.
Fabrice Bouchon.
Good morning.
And Trevor Elliott.
Good morning.
There are also 3 technical staff in the meeting to operate the live broadcast and to be on hand if there are any technical difficulties, and that's Claire, Chris and Kieran. The Democratic Services Officer and Committee Clerk today is Julie Hollins. Members of the committee will be making the decisions by a named vote. Julie will call out each member in turn and they will either vote for, against or abstain. Can I remind members to turn your microphone on again at this point? Please turn it off after voting. Because of this format, members are encouraged to make their comments succinct and pertinent to ensure the smooth running of the meeting. Those members who wish to speak, please indicate by typing your surname only in the chat facility. The chat facility is persistent in that it cannot be deleted, and any inappropriate use will be deemed as a potential code of conduct matter. Officers wishing to respond to members' questions, please type interject. I will ask members who have asked a question if they wish to come back again after receiving a response, so there is no need to type your surname into the chat facility again. So that will be the chairman will ask, or the chair will ask people that question. It is a requirement that all members will have read the paperwork published on the website. Members are reminded not to press leave meeting if you need to leave the room. Please just remember to turn off your camera and microphones. Please be aware that there can be a delay of around 5 seconds before a member appears on the screen, and each item will be reintroduced as we get to it. So, moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1 is election of chair. Do I have a nomination?
I nominate Councillor Dowling.
And do I have a seconder for that?
Yes, Councillor Field.
Thank you. So, do you have any other nominations? As there is only one nomination, there's no need for a roll call vote. Could I ask that you just signify your agreement by waving at your screen? Thank you very much. Congratulations, Councillor Dowling. You are now elected chair, and I will hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Malcolm. Good morning, everyone. Can I first of all start by saying, isn't technology wonderful? I came from a previous meeting where I was sharing my husband's laptop where it said Christopher Dowling, made a point of going in, changed it to Claire Dowling, saved it, logged out, got back in, and I've just been advised it still says Christopher. So I am not going to keep you waiting by going out and coming back in again. So apologies in advance. Hopefully that's the only glitch of the morning. So thank you very much for the nomination. And in answer to chairman or chair, I am a chairman, but obviously if you wish to address me as chairman or chair, it's completely up to you. I'm in your hands on that. If we can then go straight to the item of the agenda, which are the minutes.
Chairman, if I may, you need to elect the vice chairman.
Oh,
first.
apologies. Yes, see, I'm running ahead of myself. We're looking at a nomination for the vice chairman. Do I have a nomination?
Yes, I would like to nominate Councillor Paul Barnett for the post of vice chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'm very happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Stanley. As there is only one nomination, I believe there is no need for a roll call vote. And if you are all in agreement, may I ask you please again to once again wave? Thank you very much. So I congratulate you on becoming vice chairman. That now takes me through to agenda item 3, where we're looking to resolve the minutes of the last meeting. Do you agree the minutes of the last meeting? Again, please, can you indicate by raising your hand to the screen, unless you have any questions? Thank you. I take that as agreeing, which moves us through to apologies for absence. Julie, are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, we've got apologies from Keith Bird at Biffa, Chris Bone from Wilton District Council, Cameron Morley at Hastings Borough Council, and Deborah Keneally at Rother District Council.
Thank you, Julie. Item 5, additional agenda items. Julie, again, do we have any?
No, we don't have any.
Thank you. Item 6, disclosure of interests. Please, can you indicate if you believe you have any disclosures? Members? No? Okay, thank you. Moving on then to number 7, member question time again. Julie, do we have any questions?
No, there's no questions.
Thank you. And again, number 8, allotted non-committee member speaking time. Julie?
No, there's nothing.
Thank you. So that brings us to Trevor. Trevor, can I invite you to introduce your presentation, please?
Certainly can. Good morning, everyone. I will just put myself back on. Here you go. Hopefully you can see me. I'll just share my screen. I am aware there was a delay, Chair. Hopefully it won't be too much. I did run through this morning, but we'll see as we go. Can you all see the initial presentation? Is it on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to get it into presentation mode. There we go. Okay, so if I may just run through this with you. This illustrates our year 1, our first year of operations, and our performance to date. It's been a positive first year, establishing our culture and desired performance levels. Moving straight in. Contents, we'll run through health and safety, HR updates, collection performance, streets, high-speed roads, COVID timeline effects to operations, serious resource optimisation update, social values, ICT, and the independent customer satisfaction survey. And then, if we may, leave questions if everyone's in agreement to the end. Entirely up to you how you wish to do that, but I thought it might be easier with this type of format. Moving on, it says. Give it a few seconds. Health and safety, our primary concern, primary focus. With the adoption of any workforce, it's a concern as to their culture, and we need to embellish our culture extremely well. Within the first year of our performance, we've reported and received 766 near misses, and we were uncertain as to what level we would receive. In terms of personal injuries, we've sustained 10, which any personal injury is a concern to us. However, if you actually evaluate that from 54,240 staff working days, opportunities of accidents, the accident rate then becomes 0.02%, which in itself is remarkable within the first year. The techniques we've applied to improve our health and safety culture were the increased CCTV monitoring, which to your right you will see on the slide is pretty much how we operate this element. We can see the vehicles. I know it was a concern of everyone initially, but as you can see, it's quite in depth, it's quite supportive, and it gives us a flavour of the expectations and the opportunity of the behaviours of the individuals, good, bad or indifferent. Crew and gate monitoring checks are carried out on a regular basis, continual promotion of near misses and hazard reporting, toolbox talks, thorough investigations. 6 days is our benchmark. We must investigate any personal injury within 6 days and present this to our board of directors. The safety improvement team meetings. As of 24th of February this year, the group reinvigorated its health and safety policy and health and safety program, which was initially it was Eye for Safety. They felt that it needed a rebranding to reinvigorate and promote it once more. And the aims of it were to improve the standard of safety across the group. Safety Together, Safer Together focuses on what health and safety means both to Biffa and each employee. It's more than a one-off event, it's a core value that will keep running throughout our business now and into the future, and it underpins our Safe Pact, which is a simple commitment to keep each other safe whilst we operate. Moving on. HR update. Again, the aspirations of, I won't lie, our managing director, Roger, was that he wanted 100% full-time employment, which I thought was quite difficult to achieve. However, as you can see, as of June, we're at 90%. Within July, we'll reach 95%, and I truly believe we will reach 100% full-time employment, which offers us so much more performance improvements through continuity of staff. We're actually recruiting the remaining vacancies, and our intention is to recruit beyond the 100% full-time employed to support us with employee management, obviously long-term sickness, etc., challenging employees, and so on. Our churn rate has been quite successful as well. Between the initial July 2019 and December 2019, it was at 2%. This included the initial, if you like, replacement of underperforming certain individuals within our workforce. Our average churn rate since January to May has been 0.8, which again is quite an achievement. Employee engagement. We hold this, as we said to you previously, we hold a survey, an annual survey, employee engagement. This was completed as in previous years in February 20. We had a 51% participation rate, which was quite it was encouraging, let's put it that way. However, the overall engagement score was not to what we would expect within the benchmark of municipal. It only came through at 33 were engaged, 33% of our staff were engaged. But if we're completely honest, it's something that we expected to a certain extent because of the way that we are managing our staff with a fair but firm attitude, and we want them to do more. The days of finishing at within 5 hours is not acceptable. We need them to improve, and with every improvement or every increase in workload, there's always a kickback, and we believe this is it. But what it does is the 33% gives us an opportunity for a benchmark to aspire to and beyond for next year's figures. Engagement plans are in place We also have a continued promotion of our Biffa Beat app, which is an internal media communication. We have incentive bonuses such as driver referral. We have loaders of driver schemes, and we've got ongoing investment via individual development planning to certain employees. Already to date, we've put certain employees through some of the income collection performance. So from day one to May, we've seen a 30% improvement, which in itself is quite an accolade. There has been a slight decrease in performance since we've reintroduced the garden waste in Rother. However, the tonnage that we encountered were unprecedented. You know, there was a 74% increase in certain tonnages in waste streams because of the pandemic and the reinstatement, etc., and the effects of it. And if we're honest, we're operating with a lot less knowledgeable staff at the moment. So, but all in all, a 30% improvement is quite an achievement. Streets performance. We alluded to this at our last meeting. That the NI 195 is a national indicator to performance. It's an independent body procured via the East West Joint Base Partnership to monitor our performance. And as you can see, that the thick blue line and above denotes a comparator only from the previous contractor. Below are the tranches, which there are obviously 4 within a year, and we are measured on these. And as you can see, there's been continual improvement in Wealden. You know, however, with the detritus, we didn't meet the benchmark of 8% in our first tranche. But if I dare ask you to look at the above, you know, it was 15% under the previous contractor. In terms of Rother, we're consistently performing well. And, you know, as we speak, we are still awaiting the T1 tranche for 2021. Moving on to the next slide. High-speed roads was a commitment of ours and a concern of everybody's towards the performance of previous contractors and the state condition of them. As you can see, the slide depicts 2 elements of a spreadsheet completed at the top, planned at the bottom. These are agreed schedules with clients. They are work in progress. To date, we've achieved, you know, a measurable improvement, and we continue to do so. You know, if you look at the lower section, which is all planned and ready for, you know, to be implemented from July through to December, the majority we've already attained the permits to allow us to do this. I believe we have one, going back to the completed areas, we had one which was in Bexhill that we worked in under the guidance of highways, which caused a few problems because of all of a sudden there was a freak increase of traffic flow, to which we aborted and then we commenced at night time. So it shows our resilience and the fact that we're diverse and we can change under required situations. Moving forward, the COVID-19, the pandemic, the timeline of effects, I think it's been well discussed, no doubt, but I thought we, you know, and Madeline as well, agreed that we ought to put some sort of slide in there from our perspective. And as you can see, in March, absence levels increased beyond our agreed business continuity plan thresholds. However, we did try to continue to sustain all services. By the 24th of March, absence levels had just been, they were no longer sustainable. They peaked at 27%. I think it was on the 25th of March. And all service deployment was no longer sustainable. In compliance with the agreed PCP and in line with DEFRA and WISH guidance, certain services were suspended. However, we did, where practical, keep a skeleton resource deployed on certain things, such as the containers. And also with the bulky collections, we were requested by the clients to continue with everything that was already pre-booked. And we did so accordingly. On the 23rd of April, following requests and negotiations with clients, garden waste for both Hastings and Wealden recommenced. And as I said to you earlier, we met unprecedented tonnages, 200 tonnes in increase of a normal week. We continue to do so until the 4th of May, where, in line with forecast of absence, because it's stringently tracked, we were in a position then to reinstate all previously suspended services. We continue to manage absence and monitor it, and currently we are at a sustainable level of 13%. However, we are still looking to improve further on this, because there is an element of that which is long-term sickness. Our immediate actions to negate any further absences where best possible were to implement secure measures, COVID secure measures at each operational site. We've been extremely successful with to date, and long may it last. And obviously, through the suspension of services, then we're currently in negotiations with the partnership towards the reconciliation value towards the suspension of services. The remedial actions came from this, and the lessons learned essentially were that we needed to fully take a full review of the previously agreed BCB, which we're currently doing. We need to consider such amendments as the exclusion of long-term sick. Did it really affect? Was it a key element, etc., etc. To reduce on the trigger points, reduce the trigger points thresholds. We needed to move away from a holistic perspective towards absence across the partnership and replace this with local authority respective thresholds. Implications of seasonality needed to be considered, and client preferences, and we are in the initial stages of going through this. Route optimisation was another key element of our objectives in the first year. And whilst we bear the cost, as Roger said at the meeting or previous meeting, whilst he wasn't happy for us to keep funding these, he was not prepared to remove them until we were in an arena and space of performance that we could sustain performance without the use of these resources. However, through collaboration and management of frontline staff and by a detailed process of validation, it's quite painstaking, in fact, that we've successfully removed 2 of the 3 additional supporting crews deployed by the previous contractor. The redistribution of work has created minimal impact to residents, and we had less than 400 properties that required day changes. We were quite pleased with this. It was quite successful. It was extremely successful, if I'm totally honest. With respect to residents and clients alike, the removal of the 3rd crew has been deferred due to COVID-19 and the challenges it creates for all. We do aim to recommence this, but only as time permits. In terms of RODA, we've commenced with data validation of existing collection schedules. These schedules were inherited, and whilst we've looked at them once or twice, we still find anomalies. So we've changed tact. We're using the same model that we used in Wilden, which was extremely successful. And our intention is to successfully remove the evening crew, minimal or no requirement for collection day changes. In accordance with the initial supporting data, we are currently piloting the removal of this crew. In terms of Hastings, the validation process is in initial progress. It's already identifying efficiencies, and once complete, we will sit and review this with the client. Obviously, we will not take any actions whatsoever without discussing with the client. Social values. Our community litter picks, etc. From January to May, we've completed over 30 of these in support. We've also, in terms of Great British Spring Clean, we've donated 125 litter pickers, 75 bag hoops and 200 pairs of gloves to the scheme. Sadly, unfortunately, with the bulky reuse schemes, after meeting various charities, we were unable to progress any further due to them not accepting the waste of the items once they've been outside. And also the advent of social media marketplaces has reduced the quality of bulky items. People have realised that they can start to advertise these free and get some sort of return on them. So they're no longer being as charitable as they were, sadly. Apprenticeships are currently on hold due to COVID restrictions in the workplace. And the BIFRA award is there for all East Sussex entities to apply for this grant. But as present, I'm not told that any have done to date. Apologies if I'm incorrect with that. ICT. In terms of this, we're continually self-auditing our ICT systems, looking for improvements. White space platform, which is interfaces with client CRM, but our worksheets and our responses towards, etc., and issues, tasks. We've looked at the revision already, and we've done so. The clinical waste schedules, permitting the increase in bookings. We've done so at our costs. We've invested in the development of analytics, again at our cost, to improve reporting. This is available to both clients and us. We've only recently upgraded to the most recent version of Whitespace. And more recently, we've improved productivity on container tasks through the removal of this slot booking method, where we're going into an area-based task, assignment of tasks, which will give us so much more opportunity for improvement and also reduce our carbon footprint. In terms of the ISS vehicle CCTV, which I alluded to from the first slide on health and safety, we're now, alongside our local compliance towards this and the requirements of us to do this locally, we have now obtained external support via the monitoring from BIF's control room, which is situated in Manchester. The concept of this is there are people viewing, they will sporadically check different contracts, they will notify the individual at the contract of any good, bad or indifferent behaviours to which we will act promptly towards. We've got our annual resident satisfaction survey. Apologies that we've not distributed this. There was some delay getting this from, and again, this was due to COVID, the company that we procured, it was delayed, etc., etc. However, it's been quite successful in terms of participation. It was over 10% participation, which is always a positive measure. And in terms of the responses and the types of responses, they've also been extremely favourable. So it's welcoming and to see that the residents are satisfied with what we're doing. However, we need to improve, and we understand this. Now then, if I may, is there any questions?
Okay, I take it. Oh, wow, you've obviously done such a wonderful presentation, Trevor. I'll ask again. Does anyone have any questions to Trevor? Yes, I believe they're beginning to come in. So the first one I've got is Councillor Prochak.
Thank you, Trevor. And just can I say at this meeting how amazing it is that your people have kept on to serve. It's not me.
It's not me.
Can I just come in? If anyone else has, can everyone else please mute? Thank you very much. I think I've just seen who it was. Thank you.
Trevor, do you want to unshare your screen now so that we can see people?
Oh, apologies. Is that better?
Thank you.
Apologies there.
The first thing I wanted to say was actually a round of applause for your people to keep on this service, because it really was a key service. If we hadn't been able to, it's particularly residual waste, if we hadn't been able to keep on collecting that, my goodness, that would have been a huge problem. I'm obviously asking particularly about the Rother issues, as you've already mentioned, that the performance isn't as good in Rother as it is in the other areas, particularly with missed spins. And you know this, and I know this, that what happens is a resident will complain and the right route via the website, and it's supposed to be rectified, and in many cases is rectified. But then when it happens again and again and again, that's when they get in touch with their counsellor, and if that doesn't work, then they get in touch with the cabinet portfolio holder. So it escalates, and the two particular problems that have been drawn to my attention, and I have to say most of them have been sorted quickly. Mm-hmm. And there's and our officers know, our Rother officers know about these. The one thing is that in West Parade in Rother, the lorry is too big to get down West Parade, so they send a smaller lorry, a smaller vehicle, and bins are missed. I don't quite know why. And it's happened 6 weeks in a row with one resident, and so that, you know, makes people upset as well, you know.
And I can appreciate that, yeah.
And the other one is the one that, I mean, I don't know, the litter, beach litter is just phenomenal, I know, and you had a really good article in the Rye Observer congratulating you on cleaning up the beach litter, which was horrendous. But the one other thing that's been drawn to my attention is the way the bins are emptied too early. With the late nights, people are out on the beach and the seafront quite late. I don't know if there's any way, you said you've withdrawn evening services, but I don't know if there's any way that beach litter can't be collected much later. Thank you.
No. If I may, Councillor, just clarify, we've withdrawn the collection services in the evenings, but not the litter. What we've done is we've actually looked at that, and we've done. Obviously, you're aware we've got a new local ops manager there, and I've discussed it with him, and he's ensuring that they will be out there till 8 o'clock at night. And I actually spoke with the supervisor yesterday, and he's confirmed this as well, that there won't be a problem in terms of collection timing. But Madeline and I are looking at containment and volumes of that may have changed over recent months. But I'm down there on Tuesday. I'm going out to do a full assessment myself.
Thank you very much. Maybe it won't be so bad once restaurants and pubs are open. I don't know, because it's a problem.
As you said, it's been an enormous challenge, because the only opportunity for anyone really, for any social gathering, were parks and beaches. With the advent of potential pubs and clubs and whatever opening other social events or social meeting places, we are hoping that we will see a lesser footfall across the beaches and the proms and get back to sort of business as usual levels. In terms of the large vehicle, I'll look into that because I wasn't aware of that, and I apologise for that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Field next.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, sorry. Yes, your last slide appeared to say that performance in Rother was worse than anywhere else in the county area. Have I misinterpreted? And if I haven't, why?
Right, no, you haven't. And secondly, I can give you an indication of why that's occurred. If we go back to the slide that I alluded to where we were full-time employed, we've only recently brought in an influx of staff through improved rates within our Rother workforce. So we need to get a period of knowledge within this workforce, because obviously, whereas individuals, you may think it's just as simple as going down the street and picking it up, it's not quite as simple as that. And we needed continuity of staff, we needed regular staff, we needed knowledgeable staff out within Rother. Rother had somewhere in the region of about 20, 30 vacancies up until recently. So we focused on that, we've increased, we've negotiated, even though we're going through a pandemic and it's not the easiest times to enhance rates, etc. We've done this, we've increased the rates, we've recruited, and now we're going through this knowledgeable period. So we're hoping to, and we will see an improvement within the next few weeks.
Thank you. I hope so.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Thank you. Trevor, thank you very much for what you've achieved over the last 4 months, keeping the collection service going. As has been said already, I think it's a terrific achievement for your organisation. And it must have been an extremely difficult time, particularly coming in the first year of the contract. I'm interested to know how you negotiated the working practices for this period with the staff and with their trade unions. I was worried, obviously, in March, as we all must have been, about contact and seeing the 3 operatives jumping out the cab, and how they were managing. And I think it would be good to hear from us whether you think there's been any COVID-19 infection level amongst your staff, or whether they've actually managed reasonably well with those working practices.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your kind words, by the way, Councillor Barnett. If I may sort of go all the way back to the peak of absence, a lot of these, just to make you aware, a lot of our staff were absent or have been absent through the retention scheme, etc., etc. They continue to be paid by us as a minimum of £300 a week, whilst they've shielded loved ones and those that they cohabit with. So that took quite a chunk of our staff out the loop. What we didn't want to do was lose any more. So, of course, in line with guidance and etc., internal and external bodies, we implemented, as I said, the COVID secure measures at the sites. But yes, as you quite rightly say, we could only do what we could because of the multi-crewed vehicles. But what we allowed certain individuals where it was more practicable for them to do so, to be picked up en route. And and they could be dropped off en route, just phoning in to say, right, okay, they've left, obviously we need to cover off the duty of care. That allowed us a level of flexibility. Obviously, as we've said before, we changed certain dynamics with the depots, and we spoke to them and we talked to them and we listened to them. We expressed and we got, there was a lot of literature that came through BIFA, and it was dynamic because it was changing as different protocols, different advisory came out from the government. We immediately spoke to the staff, so they were quite happy. And I will say also the gratitude from the members of the public kept them motivated. It was quite heartwarming to receive. If you walk into, I know Councillor Project's probably seen this. If you go into St Leonard's, in the entrance, there are a raft of pictures and cards and thank yous from the members of the public. I think this really inspired them to keep working. In terms of anyone contracting this, I recall that we had one in St Leonard's that we were concerned about, where the individual started showing signs, and we were sent home immediately. The vehicle was quarantined. It was deep cleansed. It was quarantined for 72 hours, all in line with protocols. The individual was then tested. Thankfully, he wasn't positive. But we've been so robust and jumping on this immediately, and through the support of Madeline and yourselves as well, the Sussex Joint Base Partnership has been fantastic. We've managed to get some of the testing done as quickly as possible. More recently, we've had, we call it an outbreak, but we've had a few individuals that are isolating or self-isolating in the Wealdon area from Belbrook, and again, this wasn't contracted at work. This was at home. Sadly, one of them contracted it from his wife, who was an administrator, I think, in some care or association. She's still in hospital, by the way, and the other individual was quite poorly. But what we did was we took no risks. Those that he'd been anywhere near, we just isolated them, irrespective of what. Before testing, except you just stay at home and you wait there now. We just could not allow or permit or risk a spread of contraction through the workforce. So we've been extremely vigilant, extremely communicative with our staff, and we are extremely thankful to the residents who've kept them and inspired them to keep working.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your questions.
Okay. Councillor Galley.
Chairman, I just wanted to say that from a Wealdon point of view, we are extremely satisfied with the service, and the BIFA team have done a wonderful job during the pandemic. Just to really underline Trevor's comments there, that the attitude of the staff generally seems to be much more positive than it was a year or two ago, and I think that I get a lot of appreciation from the general public about the level of service and the courtesy of the staff. So I think you just want to underline that. It's also pleasing to note that street cleaning and detritus standards have improved. So please keep that up. Street cleaning is a big issue, particularly down the A22 and the A26 and the A259. So very important that we keep on top of that. And that we keep the upward trend on the 195 indicators. So thank you for an all-round improvement, but no need for complacency, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
I can assure you there will be no complacency, and I will pass on your kind words. In terms of the streets, rest assured, we will continue with this as we embarked on to make it sort of like a flagship, really get you back to where you need to be and sustain this. And by bringing in 2 experienced individuals to our team, in an ops manager and a supervisor, I think we've achieved this exceptionally well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Prochak, you have another question?
Thank you for letting me come back in again. It's just on absenteeism, or absences rather. I know you did work closely with the unions on getting things safe for the operatives. And I know Hastings, they're tough people, but their absences are hugely different. I mean, so low. Was it 9% or something? Whereas we are up to 20 in some cases. Can you explain that? I mean, is it easier in Hastings?
I don't believe it is. I think it may just be a culture, and as we said from day one, we needed to change the culture of these workforce. And we're slowly doing so. I think we've achieved it massively in Wilton. And now our focus is going to be at St Leonard's for both clients operating there. We've taken a while to recruit the right ops manager, the right person for the job. He's doing a sterling job. We're supporting him massively in terms of, as you say, they can be a prickly bunch down there. So we're supporting him in staff management, employee management, and we will get there. And as I say, to enhance everything, we're going to put in this business manager, and he will be stationed at St Leonard's to further support. So, yeah, I mean, it was also nice that and pleasing that the union, which, as you know, at St Leonard's is GMB, understood the implications of where we are, the effects on us, and they've supported us rather than, causing us further problems. But going back to it, no, I don't think it is. I think it is a culture. The terms do impact on this. Certain terms will impact on it, and you'll probably find that we've got, I can identify that we've got more new staff in certain contracts than we have. So the terms do tend to flavour or taint some of the information.
Okay, thank you. Well, no one else is indicating that they wish to say anything. I'm going to echo the sentiments that have just been previously said. I think I'm on behalf of the entire committee, please can you pass our thanks back to the staff and especially the operatives on the ground for all the work, all the services. These are extremely challenging times, very difficult times for everybody. And I think that overall, from your presentation, they have done and they continue to do an amazing job. So could you please pass this committee's thanks to them?
Of course I will. I'm not sure if Roger wanted to say something. Roger, are you available to say something in terms of?
Thanks, Charlotte. I had actually just typed the name in the chat. So thank you. Yeah, I really wanted to just kind of reiterate slightly what Trevor has said, but I think to publicly thank Trevor and the team, but also all of the colleagues in the East Sussex Waste Partnership, because I think it's been genuinely a true team effort here, and I think the understanding of providing critical frontline services and how we've managed to do that together, I think has been a real credit to everybody. And from BIFA's perspective, we would very much like to thank the East Sussex Waste Partnership for that support. We've had great support across the country from our customers, and we held when the pandemic started. A series of conference calls and updates for all of our clients to share, which was a really interesting forum where everybody could share ideas. And so we kind of got the best practice across the country. And just, I think, to give a little bit more flavour to the question that Councillor Barnett asked with regard to sort of social distancing in cabs and how we did that negotiation with the unions, and particularly we were involved with DEFRA, with what is the WISH forum, which is the Waste Industry Safety and Health Forum, as that guidance came out, was literally in those first week and 2 weeks was changing almost on an hourly basis. We sat on those committees, and what was a very dynamic situation, and we were able to share, as Trevor said, that information very quickly. And we looked at how we worked with not just with the unions but other stakeholders in assessing whether social distancing in cabs, whether putting perspex screens in cab was actually would actually compromise safety if the vehicle was involved in an accident and drivers couldn't get out, and certain things like that. So we considered quite a lot of measures, and I think I think all of that put together enabled us to get through this crisis as best we could. In terms of the incidence rates for COVID infection within Biffa staff, we have had very few, which is testament, I think, to and touch wood, we have had not any serious, really serious incidents. But also, I think it is fair to say that there is and probably we wouldn't necessarily get this, in writing from anybody, but people that are working in and around waste as a daily operation, are naturally working with airborne pathogens on a daily basis, and therefore perhaps their natural immunity is slightly stronger than other groups, but certainly coupled with the measures we put in place. So I think it's been a really positive, which has taken unbelievably almost 25% of our first 12 months working with the East Sussex Waste Partnership, which, to echo Trevor's comments, has been a really successful year of what was a very challenging environment to come into. But there are, we're very mindful that there are, a number of things that we need to improve on, that we want to improve on, and there's a number of measures where we think we can, significantly move not just the culture which Trevor's talked about, but our safety performance has improved, but our near miss and hazard spotting, for example, is still not. It's gone up significantly, but still not at a level where I feel happy that we're as resilient as we can be in that area. And I think also we're challenging ourselves to look at what are the new ways of working. I think clearly this is one, and it's not appropriate for the majority of our staff to be working from home. But that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't look at new ways of working for our staff, because we are entering a new dawn, I think. So as a business, can we become more efficient? Can we look at things? And I think there's what's pleasing for me is that the key worker status that's been applied to frontline operatives like ours has been really, really encouraging to see that during a pandemic, people have actually realised, what are the really critical jobs. And I hope that continues. And as Trevor said, the support we've had from local residents has been fantastic. And I'd like to think that we can maintain that positivity with the jobs that the guys and the girls do on the front line. So it's just a well done, I think, to Trevor and the team and everybody, and thank you to everybody at the East Sussex Waste Partnership. And we look forward to building on a solid first year and hopefully improving in the next 12 months.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Let's say you're no different to anyone, whether it's a local authority or whether it's a business out there. Everyone has to take on board what's happened, and I think we can all find new efficiencies moving forward as well. For instance, with Zoom and Skype and what have you, I think we will be taking these forward, even when we come to a point when we can actually meet together. And I do miss the face-to-face meetings, because I think you can get more out of them, because you miss the body language, you miss an awful lot that's going on. But in the meantime, these are a very good substitute. So thank you for that. Going back to the agenda, this actually then brings us to the reports that we've got today. And the first one we have is on page 1.
Can we just get a proposer and a seconder and just general agreement for that first report, please?
Okay, so I need a
Councillor
a proposer for the presentation. Oh, sorry.
Yes, please, yes.
Okay, sorry, new to me, so I'll have got this right by next time. So we need a proposer for this, please. Can someone indicate their proposal? Proposer? If someone's proposing, can they unmute?
I am unmuted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. That's Councillor Prochek, and a seconder.
I'm happy to second.
Thanks, Councillor Stanley. And can I show an indication with your hands if you're in agreement with this? That is okay. Thank you. Going forward, that's been accepted. So I need to now move on to agenda item 10, which is on page 1 of the papers. It's a service performance update, and I'm going to invite Madeline to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. I don't intend to dwell on the content of the report too much, because effectively the purpose is just to maintain our reporting format for waste services under these contract arrangements. So one thing that I would like to explain to everybody in response to some of the briefing questions that were raised was the revised format for the mist collection graph. So these are displayed on pages 2 and 3 of the report. So I'd just like to explain that the key performance indicator under the contract number 6 assesses collections performance per 100,000 collections due. Now, this means this is a technique that we've used for some years now, because it deals with the fact that there are different numbers of households in each of the council areas. So the 70,000 odd households in the Wealdon area compare with the 46 odd thousand households in the Hastings area. But of course, one mist collection in Hastings then is 1 out of 46,000, whereas the impact is slightly less in Wealdon because it would be 1 out of 70,000. So we roll all of these numbers together for the contract, and key performance number 6 is how we measure overall performance for contract purposes. Now, these are displayed in each of the graphs as the grey bars. So you'll notice that the grey bars are actually the same on each of the graphs displayed, because that is your per 100,000 performance, and it includes all of your collection streams. Slightly differently from that are your coloured bars, and this is probably the more important information for you as individual members, because these display the actual numbers of mist collections in each of your areas month by month. So just as an example, you may question why there are, for example, in the February performance period for refuse collections on page 2, that in the Rother area there are 62 actual mist collections compared with March where there are 52, but you can see the grey bars are higher. And that is because it's this rolled up approach. So you might question whether performance had improved or decreased from February to March. And the simple answer for Rother in this example is your performance on refuse improved, but your overall performance, there was a slight deterioration. Now, of course, actually, we're talking about February and March this year, one of the most stressful times and just at the beginning of the pandemic. So there are other factors that affected those particular performance periods. But I just wanted to explain the format of the graphs. And the other key point, of course, is that the blue dotted line is the KPI level. This is what we will be looking for in contract year 2, that line will reduce, because again, that links back to the contractual performance management framework. So hopefully that's explained the formats of the graphs, and I'm hoping that I'll happily take questions. The only other point I'd like to raise on this report is with reference to page number 4, which is about recycling performance. And again, it's acknowledging that just over a year ago, the committee was discussing recycling performance in some detail. Obviously, committees have been delayed and the April committee was cancelled this year, but we are anticipating some information from County Council at some point because, of course, responsibility for the disposal of DMR and all of the financial and contractual arrangements that sit behind that disposal transferred to county at the beginning of this contract last year. And so the quality of the material that we collect under our contract with Biffa transfers to county under their contract that's actually with Viridor. It's a complicated contractual mechanism that does involve their other partners, but there is a focus on quality of the material that we are collecting. And it's important that all of us recognise that, especially as the UK Environment Bill, which was halfway through its parliamentary approval process at the beginning of this year, is still in progress. And the parliamentary committee, I believe, met last week. And so that it will continue, and that will affect all of the waste management arrangements. I suppose with COVID and the pandemic, what I can't be certain about is the timescales for implementation and whether that will actually be deferred for another year or so. So, and remember, for everybody here, the key issue there will be food waste, because right now that legislation will require us to collect food waste. But remember, that's right now. It hasn't been all the way through its consultation process yet. So with that in mind, I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has on this report.
Okay, thank you. I know Councillor Field had a question on what we've just done, but I believe Malcolm has just answered that question. Yes, thank you. So moving on, Councillor Stanley, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks for that, Madeline. I'm just on paragraph 8, and you just mentioned about contamination, and it lists out there the whole load being rejected if it's more than 10%. Do we know, and unless I've missed it, I couldn't see in the report, how many of our loads in a typical month are rejected? I mean, hopefully it's a very low number, but do we know? Yeah. Oh God, I've got two questions. The other one was, I noticed that, and I know we've gone through very difficult times, and I think Biffa have done a great job, but the assisted collections, which are low numbers, I would imagine have a significant effect on those individuals, and they seem to have gone up. And are we confident they will start to go down again?
Thank you, Councillor. So to answer your first question, in the month of the last full month is June. So, actually that's this week, and I haven't had in the last 3 days. So as of Tuesday this week, there were 4 contaminated loads in the month of June. From memory, there were 5 or 6 in the month of May, and maybe 5 or 6 in the month of April. So they're not high incidents. So if you think each lorry might tip once or twice a day, we've got approximately 30, 35 lorries out from day to day. So in terms of tipping per day, there's somewhere between 30 and 70 tipping operations each day. Multiply that by 20 days of the month, and you can see the number of incidents is very low, but of course each lorry carries 5-6 tons of potentially unusable recyclables, so it's still significant volumes, but a small proportion of the total. In response to your second question about assisted collections, and particularly performance and repeated assisted collections, the local teams hone in very, very closely on assisteds because they are our most vulnerable customer group, and nobody disagrees. There is no reason not to make the effort for an assisted collection. So those are taken very seriously by all of the management teams. And typically, my understanding is there are very few repeated missed assisteds, but they do tend to pop up across your entire geography. So fortunately, it's not the same people being affected week after week, but unfortunately, all it seems to take is a loader not diligently taking note of that address and realising that if the bin isn't by the gate, they still have to go up to the back door, or whatever the practical arrangement is. But there is a distinct management effort on keeping those as low as possible. That's probably all I can really say on it. It's an ongoing effort, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Field.
Yes, thank you. About contaminated loads, I'm not clear what's causing the contamination. Is it things that the residents are putting wrongly in their recycling bins, or is it the fact that the lorries are coming out of the depot, perhaps not emptied from the night before, with the wrong kind of waste in them?
Okay, so out of the 4 or 5 incidents that I've been personally working on in the last month or so, 3 of those were mixed, what we call mixed loads. So there would be an operation typically late on a Friday where that lorry was not tipped late in the evening. Now, to be fair, the tips close for normal operations around about 4 o'clock, I think it is 4 or 5 o'clock. So if the lorry is working later into the evening, it can't tip that night. But then if that lorry is deployed again tomorrow morning to do work, say catch-up work or other work the next day, the drivers should be checking the rear compartments before they operate that lorry or deploy it onto a service. And that's an area that BIFRA management are very aware of and are putting management effort into stopping. And hopefully, to date, and I know it's only the 3rd, but we haven't had any yet in July. So hopefully management effort is controlling that root cause. Separately from that, it's not so much domestic residents using their normal wheelie bins for inappropriate material. It's not like they're using their green bins like their black bins. The most other common point is from bring sites. And this is typically where people are accessing bring sites and using the containers for whatever they like. And this is a whole aspect to our resident behaviour that is of great concern. It's difficult to keep on top of. Action has been taken to, for example, to put new lids on containers and reduce the apertures through which items can be deposited in the bins, all to some effect, but it has not solved the problem. The client group, so your supervising officers, are aware of the incidents and your worst sites in each area. And of course, the simple answer a few years ago would have been your enforcement teams would set up a CCTV analysis, and over a period of time, that would all be, the problem would be cracked, the perpetrators would be found. But of course, council resources aren't as extensive as they might have been a few years ago, and so this is quite a difficult issue to tackle in practice, but efforts continue, and bit by bit. The good news is it's typically key perpetrators, so once you've found them, you've solved largely that problem. So
thank you.
It's finding them.
Thank you.
Okay, no one else has indicated they wish to ask a question. Councillor Prochak, you've just quickly come in.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if this is appropriate at this point, but obviously each council is responsible for increasing the recycling rate of their individual councils. And I wonder if sometime soon in the future, at one of these meetings, we could actually address the whole thing about our supply chain, because we have just yesterday, in fact, had a meeting of our waste, our climate change working group, and ready to go to cabinet. And we very early on passed a motion of climate emergency, quite a long time ago now, it seems. And one of the things we'll be looking at is reducing the carbon footprint of our contractors. And I know BIFRA are already looking at this. I think they're looking at it, but it would be very good to have a session in this group on that particular aspect. And I'm sure all the other councils are moving along the same lines. So I wonder, I don't know if there's anybody from East Sussex here, because one of the things we'd had a really interesting.
Councillor Prochak, can I just sort of come across? I think you brought it up as something we should talk about at a future meeting.
Okay.
I think that's possibly something the officers can go away and talk with Biffa about. And I think rather than start to go in, because I'm sure that you will add something, and I can almost see someone wanting to put their hand up. So I think we will postpone this till we've got something to look at a future meeting, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So I think I can safely say on this particular report, there are no further indications that anyone wishes to speak. So if I take you back to the recommendation, which is that the report is noted, can I have a proposer, please, for that?
Happy to propose.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. And a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Then indication of hands, please. Are we in favour of noting? Thank you very much. So now that moves us on to item 11, which is on page 7. It's the COVID-19 update, and we're back to Madeline.
Thank you, Chair. So again, just a few key points on this report. With reference to the introduction of the report, I think it's really important that we all understand just how quickly the pandemic situation arose in terms of the time available for management planning, business continuity planning, the opportunities to review any previous experience. And of course, particularly for myself, this is the first time in my whole professional career that I've actually had to deal with the actual implementation of a business continuity scenario for a period of time. Yes, I've been working for organisations where the IT system goes down for 5 days, but no, I have never actually managed a scenario like this that's been so extensive and isn't over yet. So with that as the background to this particular report, one of the things that I was very impressed with, and I think it's worth noting by the committee, is in the world of waste, there are lots of us involved, lots of different organisations, lots of senior managers and lots of commercial and financial drivers that sit behind us all. And from time to time, that can mean that our relationships, have their obvious professional tensions. Who benefits from the money of this? Who gets to pay for that? And in this particular scenario, one of the things I was very impressed by was the leadership that was demonstrated by all of the senior managers actually involved, and particularly my colleagues at County, at Veolia and at Biffa, where everybody put any previous irritations with each other to the side completely, and the communication channels that were established very, very quickly and very professionally, and with a great deal of focus on what it meant for members of the public. Because the honest truth was, if Biffa were able to sustain the collection operation, that wouldn't have been to anybody's real benefit if they couldn't tip the material every day. If then the further parts of the chain of waste, if the the waste transfer stations were open and they could tip, if that material then built up in the waste transfer stations and couldn't then go on through the rest of the Veolia operation or the Viridor operation, so the chain of waste was maintained. So while I'm pleased to have worked with Biffa and my council colleagues on the collection side, I'm very clear that we could have sustained that, but it could still have stopped if then that material couldn't be shuffled on through the chain. So really impressed with the way that we all handled this and the regularity and the openness of communication that we maintained. Just on that point, those regular engagements have been suspended pending a second phase of the pandemic, but the good communications and relationships that we established will serve us well for whatever we face in the future. So I'm comfortable that all senior managers will, we're all accustomed to using Zoom, etc. now, so it's all good. With regard to business continuity, this is described on page 8 of the report. I think it's just important to note that Appendix 1 of this report describes the level of service activity that was sustained. And of course, this is an enormous contract with at least 10 different service lines. Your main collection services and your street cleansing are probably your top 4 or 5, but actually there are another 5 or 6 important service lines that sustain your services. And all of those, with the sole exception of garden waste collections, primarily during the month of April, were all sustained by BIFA. And of course, we've dealt with that in Trevor's presentation. I make some commentary on performance on different points on page 9, but nothing really to dwell on too much or to be overly concerned about. These are all minor issues that are being tackled by the management group. The final part of the report, so from from paragraph 17 on page 9 through page 10, discusses some of the key contractual and financial implications of the COVID scenario. And as Trevor indicated earlier, I'm working with Simon Badley and other members of the BIFA corporate team to finalise the terms of a variation. This effectively, the complexity that we've had is we pay for our contract on for services, for outputs effectively. And of course, the pandemic type scenario needs to deal with the financial realities of the inputs required, the number of agency staff, the number of hire vehicles that are required at any one time. But we're not in any kind of dispute about this. We're just dealing with what elements are fixed or direct costs arising. And I expect that variation will be completed during the month of July, because the pandemic period we agreed on was from effectively Monday the 30th of March through to 30th of June. So now we're 3 days after the end of that period, we're whole scale into completing that variation. The key point of it will be, if the pandemic re-escalates or if we face anything like this again in future, we will be very well positioned to handle all of the contractual and financial implications quite simply, because we've agreed to the principles on how we should handle them. And then my final point in this report is made on page 11, which is, and I think I pick up on what Roger Edwards said earlier, and that is that we don't think this is quite over yet, and we don't know what our new normal will really look like. And I think it's important that we as a team who are managing a contract with, you know, fairly clear black lines in terms of our contractual responsibilities and liabilities, that we must deal with the reality, and that the contract, if necessary, will be subject to further variations. But of course, members can be assured that there's a good management structure behind the contract that is looking to protect the council interests in a fair and reasoned way, with BIFA as our contracting partner. So, thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. Yes, you're right. We are all aware that the pandemic is far from over, although there appear now to be quite an element out in the public domain that do actually believe. But we know, and we know that at a future point in time, we may need to raise again what we've been doing, and what's gone before will stand us in very good stead. I think the committee will agree with us on that. I'm looking to see if there are any messages of indication of asking questions. No? Okay, so in that case, can we go back to page 7 with the recommendation, for which I'm going to need a proposer. We are noting the report, but I will still need a proposer, please. Okay, unless you are all muted, I need a proposer to propose.
I'm happy to propose.
Thank you.
I'm happy to second.
Councillor Stanley proposes, Councillor Galley seconds. I was just checking that everyone was paying attention. Thank you.
We always pay attention to you, Madam Chairman. Wouldn't dream of doing anything else.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Right, moving on. Agenda item 12, page 69, matters arising in contract year 2. Yes, Madeline.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the report deals with some of your key forthcoming or key aspects to the contract. So the first section is about what the council spent in 2019-20, and just a point of clarification. So with regard to table 1 and the bottom line of core total spend, please remember that's 9 months worth of expenditure. And the second line there, the 2021 forecast in bold, just under that, of course, is your full 12 months forecast for what is now the current financial year. And of course, most of this information would have been reported to you in April if that committee had taken place. So on to page 70. Each of the councils manage their own waste budgets, and I'm looking particularly at paragraph number 6 here. And the point I'd just like to re-emphasise is that to date, I have no knowledge that, or no indication that any of the councils are operating at close to or outside agreed budgets. So even though we've been dealing with the COVID situation, the outcome of the variation and every other financial implication I currently have sight of, I'm confident that, again, contract year 2 will be managed within agreed budgets. So happy with that. One of your key areas of expenditure is described at the bottom of page 70. And with regard to paragraph number 9, the point to note is the way that we are managing container stocks now means that Biffa buy them, keep the stock in the yard, and then as each council draws on that stock, you pay us back. So effectively, the administering authority, Rother District Council, is providing a float for this arrangement. And at the end of the financial year 1920, that float was around the £21,000 mark. So if you think of that in terms of that's the value of stock that's sitting in yards somewhere waiting to be drawn on. I have no commentary through page 70-71. On to page 72. I conducted a health and safety audit earlier this year and was very pleased with the way that Biffa can demonstrate and evidence through good record keeping the quality of their health and safety management. There is some, obviously the waste industry is still number 2 in the UK in terms of danger to particularly employees. That's just after the farming and agriculture industry now. Construction has sunk down the list. Those of us who recognise the changes in the construction industry over the last decade or so, but that's probably an indication of the time that's needed for this level of cultural change. With regard to the future of health and safety, the partnership board last month considered how health and safety was being managed across the local council, client teams, us in the central office, and through the Biffa operation. And the conclusion is described or is mentioned in paragraph 17, which is Biffa are able to demonstrate, they obviously operate nationally and are able to demonstrate a good level of health and safety awareness and management and all of the procedures and processes that sit behind that. And because of that, the partnership board concluded the right thing for us to do as councils would be to engage closely with the Biffa SHEC team, their safety, health, equality and qualities team, environmental and quality team, to learn from their experiences and particularly work that they're doing with other clients in the UK. And this may mean that we adjust our own approaches locally to the management of health and safety. And if I give you an example, when we stand with an inspection sheet and the crew know that we're there, then things tend to happen as they should. So maybe a better way to assess genuine safety is to use remote CCTV monitoring, which Biffa alluded to in their presentation. Actually, they have a centralised CCTV monitoring operation which could be expanded across East Sussex, and actually that's the approach that I hope that we will take soon. So again, 2 points. Biffa have good expertise, and we, the council, should take full advantage of that expertise, and that's what we expect to do over the next 6 months between now and the end of this year. The next part of the report deals with the commentary from your local supervising officers on page 73 through to 74, 75. And I would just like to finish my part with reference to the risk assessments. And on page 76, which is paragraph 40, bullet point 3, I make a commentary about extensive use of agency staff, and that was because the last time I assessed our risk register was the beginning of June, and at that point there were quite high numbers. However, subsequently, and it was actually in parallel with Biffa's recruitment drive, by the middle of June they had recruited, I think it was 8 or 9 new members of staff, which replaced a number of agency. And I understand as of this week, the Biffa operation is currently around 95% reliance on permanent or fully employed staff. So the reliance on agency staff has dropped significantly, and I will be de-escalating that risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeleine. Does anyone have any questions? I've got nothing in the chat. Last opportunity, no questions? Okay, thank you very much, Madeleine, in which case we need to go back again to page 69. We are being asked once again to note the report, so I am asking for a proposer.
Happy to propose, Chairs, Councillor Forward.
Thank you, Councillor Forward, and I'm asking for a seconder.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. And can we just have an indication, please, if you'd like to raise your hands, if you're in favour? That's agreed. Thank you, everybody, and thank you very much, Madeleine, for those reports. So looking back at the agenda, we are now on item 13, the final item, which is the date of the next meeting. And I have the next meeting down as Friday, the 23rd of October, 10 o'clock. The agenda says to be held in County Hall, but we don't know what kind of world we're living in. We very much hope it will be County Hall. If not, I look forward to seeing you back on here. So thank you very much, everybody. That's the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.